Adding and subtracting rational expressions continued. Take out your notes and add to your notes from the other day this problem. 4 over x squared minus 49 plus 2 over x squared plus 5x minus 14. Now I'm just going to go ahead and talk through this. Go ahead and pause the video if you need extra time to write anything down. The first thing we need to do in this problem, in order to get common denominators, is to factor the denominators. X minus 7, x plus 7 is the factorization for the first denominator, and the second denominator is x plus 7, x minus 2, because 7 and negative 2 multiply to give you negative 14, and they add up to be positive 5, which is just what we needed. Now you notice that they both have an x plus 7 that's already in common. So to get common denominators, this fraction needs an x minus 2, and this fraction needs an x minus 7. As you know, we can multiply by 1 and it won't change the value of the fraction. So we multiply by 1 in the form of x minus 2 over x minus 2 for the left side. That's going to get this over here to be in common. And then because this side doesn't have an x minus 7, we're going to use x minus 7 over x minus 7. Now we need to multiply out the numerators, and I'm just going to go ahead and do that right above this step. So I take the 4 and I distribute it into the x minus 2. I'm just going to jot it down right above it. That's 4x minus 8. Over here, I'm going to take the 2 and multiply it by the x minus 7 and get 2x minus 14. Since this was an addition problem with a plus 2, it's not going to give me any issues with signs over here. The last thing I need to do is combine the green parts up here, the numerators. The common denominator is going to be made up of 3 factors, the x minus 2, the x minus 7, and the x plus 7. So, if we take 4x plus 2x, we get 6x. Negative 8 plus negative 14 is negative 22. And then there's those 3 factors for the denominator that we talked about. That's it for that problem. Remember, don't multiply out the denominator, just leave it in factored form. Okay, now I'm going to move on to the next problem. Remember, if you need more time, just go back and rewind it or pause. This next problem is very similar to the first one in that we have to factor the denominators in order to figure out how to get the least common denominator. I have made this problem addition also. Of course, if it were subtraction, be careful with that. I've gone ahead and factored each denominator. So the original problem was in black, and then the factorization would be my first step. So we don't have a difference of squares in either denominator like we did in the last problem. We just have some basic trinomials. So we factor the first one with x plus 2, x plus 5, because we were looking for 2 numbers to multiply to give us 10, add up to give us 7. Over here, 2 numbers that multiply to give us 20 and add up to 12 would be 2 and 10. So we've got our factors on that side. Now notice each of these have an x plus 2 already, so that's done. This has an x plus 5, but this one doesn't. It's going to need it. This has an x plus 10. This one doesn't. It's going to need it. So next step is our multiplication step. Remember, don't just multiply it on the top and say you're, quote, cross-multiplying. No, you need to multiply by the equivalent of 1, which is x plus 10 over x plus 10, and then over here, x plus 5 over x plus 5. Remember, if you're writing all this down, working horizontally across a page, don't forget equal signs between your steps. I'm working it, I guess you could say, as if I'm working down on my paper. Okay, so once we have that, you know that we need to multiply the 5 into the x plus 10 and the x into the x plus 5. I have a couple options on notation for this one. So the first one, the first option for notation, it looks exactly like the last problem. I went ahead and just worked the multiplication step right above. So we've got 5 times x plus 10, 5x plus 50, and then we have the x times x plus 5 right here. Now, if that's getting too cluttered for you and you don't want to write above it, You, of course, could write it as a new step, and I just put all the numerator parts we just talked about right here over, and I have a little placeholder for the 3 factors. And then finally I combine like terms, whether I'm using this notation up here or I'm writing a nice clean new step here. I have x squared, and then 5x plus 5x, of course, is the 10x plus the 50. Can't use a placeholder for your final answer, of course. Make sure you have your 3 different factors multiplied together, x plus 2, x plus 5, and x plus 10. Once again, do not multiply out your denominator, just leave it in factored form. And that's it. Your assignment is going to be the last 2 problems on the worksheet. Make sure you show your steps just like we did in these examples.